For nearly a decade, Rory McIlroy was the PGA Tour's shield. He fought LIV Golf in press conferences nobody else wanted to sit through. He defended the tour when defending it cost him fans, energy, and peace of mind. So when the same player who carried that fight started calling the tour's own future plan a glorified Corn Ferry event, people noticed. Not because he said something harsh, because of who was saying it. This is the story of how that happened, and why the man who once said he liked the new CEO a lot ended up questioning everything Brian Rolap is building. To understand this, you need to know who walked into the room first. Brian Rolap didn't come from golf. He spent over 2 decades at the NFL, negotiating the kind of television deals that turned Sunday afternoons into a billion-dollar business. He knew streaming platforms. He knew how to make a sport profitable. What he didn't have, walking in, was golf's history or its politics. For a while, that looked like an advantage. When Rolap was announced as the tour's incoming CEO in the summer of 2025, players didn't see a threat. They saw someone with no old grudges and no old alliances. McIlroy was one of the first to sit down with him, 90 minutes, one-on-one. When it ended, he didn't hold back. I like him a lot, he told reporters, adding that he liked that Rolap had no preconceived ideas of what golf should look like. That single meeting handed Rolap something priceless: credibility, straight from the tour's biggest star. So what was the plan that eventually turned that trust into tension? A total reimagining of the tour, set to launch in 2028. At its center, a 2-track system. Track 1, the top circuit, would carry the majors and signature events, roughly 20-plus tournaments, fields near 120 players, purses around $20 million each. Track 2 would be the Challenger Series underneath it, smaller purses, smaller stages. At the end of each season, the bottom of Track 1 drops down, and the best of Track 2 moves up. Promotion and relegation, borrowed straight from European soccer. Rolap called it building a stronger, more competitive product. But for tournaments with decades of history, events like the Canadian Open, that framework raised a brutal question. Which side of the line do you land on? Here's the part that makes this sting. McIlroy wasn't neutral early on. He was one of Rolap's clearest defenders. That first call wasn't hostile. It was 2 men talking about where the sport needed to go. And when reporters asked, McIlroy said it plainly. He liked him. He liked him a lot. Those words mattered because of who said them. McIlroy isn't just a player. He's the tour's most recognizable face. The man who spent years publicly carrying the PGA Tour through its war with LIV Golf. If Rory trusted Rolap, other players were willing to give him room to work. But trust has a shelf life. Through the first half of 2026, as details of the 2-track plan reached players in briefings, McIlroy's tone shifted. Not hostile yet, just noticing things out loud, questioning the pace, questioning what got protected and what didn't. Then came the moment that turned a slow shift into a headline. Ahead of the 2026 U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills, McIlroy sat for his pre-tournament press conference. 11 questions in, mostly about the golf course. Then one more, about the tour's future structure. He didn't dodge it. He brought up the Canadian Open by name, an event played the week before, and said it could be headed for Track 2. Then came the line that defined the week. Track 2 is a glorified Corn Ferry event. That's what Track 2 is going to be. He added he didn't think the Canadian Open belonged there, warning that events risked losing their stature if a sponsor couldn't put up $30 million. Then he went further, questioning the entire premise for why any of this restructuring started. Reflecting on everything the tour had reworked since LIV forced its hand, he said the tour before LIV was actually pretty good. Read that again. The tour's own poster boy, the player who fought hardest to keep it alive during the LIV war, was now questioning whether the reinvention was even necessary. Rolap couldn't let that sit. A week later, at the Travelers' Championship, he addressed it directly. Yeah, I had a chance to speak with Rory today. We talked a bit about it. He pushed back on the Corn Ferry comparison specifically, saying the Challenger Series would run at recognizable venues, carry real purses, and include the same pool of players competing today. That is much different than what the Corn Ferry Tour is today, he said. But McIlroy didn't need more words to make his point. He let his schedule do it. PGA Tour rules require members to play a minimum of 15 events a season. McIlroy was on pace to finish 2026 with 14, one short. Not a secret. He'd flagged the possibility to the Tour himself the year before. A five-time major champion, the Tour's most visible defender through its darkest political years, quietly putting his own membership on the line, not through rebellion, but by simply choosing his own priorities and letting the Tour work out the rest. The Tour's escape valve here is the extenuating circumstances clause, language buried in the player handbook, letting the commissioner waive the minimum for medical or extraordinary reasons. It's almost never used. Seve Ballesteros lost his card over this exact rule in 1986. Martin Kaymer lost his in 2016. McIlroy was on track to become the rare exception, with reports indicating the Tour, under Rolap himself, was prepared to grant it. Step back, and here's what's actually on the table. Rolap's version treats golf like a product that needs rebuilding, fewer marquee events, clearer stakes, history taking a back seat if it has to. McIlroy's version treats golf as something that isn't fully his to redesign. The Canadian Open isn't a line item, it's decades of history fans and communities built by showing up year after year. Nothing here is settled. The framework doesn't lock until 2028, and the next 18 months will decide which version of the Tour actually gets built. But right now, the same player who once said he liked Brian Rolap a lot is the loudest voice questioning whether his plan should exist at all. So here's the real question. If the Canadian Open, or your favorite tournament, ends up in track 2, does it matter who was right?